Welcome.
Welcome all to a wonderful session of Brown and Browner, the Father's Day / U.S. Open / NBA weekend and NHL. It's a good weekend of sports. It's a good weekend of fatherhood. It's a good weekend of fun. It's summertime.
Yeah, rainy time here in part of the states. So
well, we're about to get to that stage potentially this weekend with the U.S. Open. That's what'll be the interesting twist here. If any of you folks watched yesterday, it was a great golf, honestly, all around. I mean, Oakmont is truly one of the toughest courses in America, as it's been touted. You can see from the scores that's been the case for some of the greatest golfers we have in the land here. Honestly, it's going to be a crapshoot as to who kind of pulls out on top after Saturday to kind of lead this thing on Sunday, because the course conditions are changing daily. Yesterday it played like a traditional tough course, big, thick rough, fast greens. The guys with the heavy balls and the long ball were kind of leading the scores early on, with the DeChambeaus of the world and the Rorys of the world. And then they faded on the back nine, as you can see from their scores.
6 over for Rory McIlroy after shooting 2 under on the front nine.
Yes.
But if you're not hitting fairways, the rough it's penalizing them as a U.S. Open course generally does. Yes. But I saw some shots where the guys hit it in the rough 2-3 times. They look like you and me on the golf course on Sunday.
Yep. There was a running joke, I forgot which commentator said it yesterday. It's almost better to hit it into the crowd because the grass will be trampled so that you can avoid the true rough of Oakmont. That's how bad it is.
Well, that's actually true. That's actually true. If you're going to miss where the grass isn't so thick and push down, and you might have an opportunity to advance the ball. Some of these guys were hitting the ball like 30 yards, like full swing, balls going 30 yards.
Yep. No, it was pretty interesting to watch all throughout the day. I mean, like I said, the top golfers, they're still trying to figure out the course. And I that's where I kind of appreciate guys like Scotty Scheffler. He takes usually day one. He's never that front line, the Thursday leader, if you've looked at most of his wins. He's the guy that feels out the course on day one and then schools it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which has been the case lately, at least it seems like.
And that's probably why he ranks second right now as far as the odds to win it on one of the betting outlets that I saw this morning. So,
yep. Same with John Rahm. John Rahm's been a guy, ever since he went over Live, not as exciting, I hate to say, but he's got his game in form, I will say, based on what I saw yesterday. So he'll probably make the cut, after today. So he'll be contending. But it'll be curious to see who kind of comes out the cream of the top right now, because this course is going to be changing over the weekend after it rains to where it'll be playing a little slower and sluggish on the greens. But honestly, from a philosophy standpoint, the way that we've been talking about the rough, the guys with the long ball have the best chance, in my opinion. So you got the DeChambeaus and all of that can hit the long ball. I think Rory hit one yesterday. It was like 380, something astronomical. Rip the darn thing. And then the way that you approach the greens on some of these, there's a couple holes that are like link style, so you can have it roll forever.
Which means 3 putts.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's the U.S. Open has always been the toughest test of golf each year. It's tricked up that way, the way the golf course is. I do agree with you that it's just like anything, right? If I'm going to hit the ball into the rough, if I'm 50, 60 yards ahead of you, I'm going to have an advantage, even if I'm in the rough and we're both in the rough.
Yep.
I do feel like I hadn't had a chance to read some of these articles. It seems like there's some controversy swirling around relating to, I saw something about Koepka and Thomas, some kind of thing going on there. I didn't get a chance to read the article. I just saw it flash.
Yeah, they probably got a little bro battle going on, Koepka, another guy that, great at one point, then he went to Live and went away,
So so there's an article out here that says Koepka was scolded so bad, Justin Thomas had to check him before the U.S. Open. So.
Or what?
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, so apparently he got scolded by his coach on the eve of the U.S. Open. He shot 2 under yesterday.
Yep, shot well.
and I guess his contract with the Saudi league is
Oh,
set to
yeah.
expire. Um, so that's a pretty funny, and I didn't know how those contracts work with Live,
They're paid
but
fixed sums, so it's kind of like a baseball contract. So it's like, hey, how many
mhm,
years? You're given fixed amount of money. That's why a lot of these guys went. It was guaranteed money. At the end of the day, 20, 30 million, whatever the heck, you're getting paid a year. So it's big money out there, no question. It's being paid by a hell of a fund, to say the least.
oh, they got their jets, they're getting their money. They don't need to even play good golf, and they got guaranteed money coming in, yada yada yada.
Yep.
But as we've seen with since Live Golf's creation,
Yep.
how many of those golfers, because they only come over here for majors, they don't play
Exactly.
anything else, which I always wondered, like if I'm the PGA and you defected, why would I let you play in my biggest events?
Right. Yep. It's very valid.
So yeah, but they come over and play, and many of them play poorly. And I'm sorry, they shouldn't even allow Phil Mickelson to play in the majors anymore because he plays like crap. Except one time he did all right. And generally, he's making hundreds of millions of dollars doing nothing. Yeah, that was an incredible flop shot. I'm sure it went viral. Everybody's seen the flop shot he made. Phil Mickelson has those skills still, even at his age. But he plays golf like I play golf. No, he doesn't. He plays better, but not that much better. He's not pro level golf anymore.
I thought he had gone away after a while after some injuries and off the course kind of stuff with stocks and all that other crap and all that weird stuff that he had going on. Then he stopped doing Enbro commercials and
Yep. You stop seeing his face. But again,
Yeah.
Live has I feel like while these golfers got paid, and more power to you. I'm not dinging you for that or saying that that's wrong to try to get the most money you can for the skill you have, entertainment value, yada yada. But they're total gains. And Tiger Woods said this best: when you're out there scraping and scratching, trying to make cuts to be able to make money, it makes you devote more time and effort and passion into what you're doing. If you're getting paid, it's just like every athlete we see who finally gets that big contract. There's a big exhale, and all of a sudden they're not playing as hard. They're not performing. They're not reaching the levels of the potential that they got paid on.
I'm still trying to figure out the economics of Live because you paid some guys some astronomical money to come there. The way that they play in their tournaments, they only do 3 days, and that was part of the allure. Right. So less demand for some of these guys. They do travel, globally, whatever. I mean, I honestly haven't heard of like fans forking over crazy money to go watch this thing. So where's the money coming from other than the sovereign fund just going negative at this point? I mean, I get it for the sport of the wealthy folks to be able to watch their favorite golfers and they paid for that, privilege or whatever the hell you want to call it. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a business model that can sustain itself. So maybe it'll die on its own over the next few years before any type of quote unquote merger or whatever the hell they're trying to do. Obviously, the PGA has its own problems we've heard about through this entire process, and that's fine. But I just don't see where it's going to be able to sustain itself, and especially if they've got golfers that are coming off contracts like Brooks Koepka, like you're talking about. These guys are going to come back to the PGA, in my opinion.
Well, and I'm thinking the same thing. They've gotten a chance to basically maximize their revenue or income, and they don't necessarily need it anymore. Like, how many more hundreds of millions do you need, or tens of millions, or whatever you're getting paid? I think they've been able to enjoy that for a few years, and now they could come back to play real golf with real golfers and compete on a higher level, because I don't feel like they're competing. And it was like this, they had this thing where, yeah, you might have been an individual golfer, but really you're part of a team and you need to do this and do that. And, I feel like it's not sustainable, one, because how are they making money? I want to see the books for Live. Are they just really not making money, but it's nice to be able to have, because I could blow, $1 billion because I'm an oil, we basically are just paying you in oil, and we're always on inexhaustible supply there.
And this is akin to world soccer too, where you paid Cristiano Ronaldo to come play in your backyard. Okay, he did it for nearly $1 billion or whatever you wanted to pay him. Okay. I mean, I'm gonna be very blunt when I say this. It's kind of like enslavement, where you're paying to get some of the best talent just come play in your backyard, and you're paying to have the best play in your sandbox just because you can afford it.
I figured that's the case, because they got inexhaustible money, so they're basically just, like you said, hiring these people to come in. You're going to play. We're going to puppeteer you. You're going to do what you want to do. But I feel like for every one of those guys that did this, their careers and legacy suffered.
Oh yeah, I used to respect the hell out of John. I thought John Rahm was going to be the next like great thing you can look up to, and everything else.
Yep. Savvy.
Downward hill. Dustin Johnson was on a trajectory like it was astronomical at one point.
Yeah.
You know
who?
Yeah,
Who?
exactly. Who? Yeah.
And Bryce has been probably the shining example from that league, only because he's come over and contended in a few majors. But if you're not seeing him all year long, you're not getting that connection. Nobody's buying any Bryce gear.
Well, he's also that guy that created his separate image. Like he had, he did the whole Popeye thing, and went into the gym and turned big. And then he's got a social channel that's really big too. That's a great follow. Actually, I'll say that. He was actually one of the guys that was out literally for the last week at Oakmont. And he played like 4 rounds, and he chronicled the whole thing online. It's pretty impressive. But it's pretty cool to see like he's actually still devoted to the game. I will say that.
Yeah, and he's changed his image a ton because I wasn't a big Bryce DeChambeau.
He was a bad.
But now he's become personable. He shows character and personality. He, like you said, he has these places where people can access him, and he's willing to open his life up. Most golfers are not like that. Exactly. And I think that's endearing, and people are liking him. You see how he shakes the hands as he's going through the crowds after each hole and all of this stuff. So I give him credit for that. But I still feel like as a whole, those live golfers are they're getting rich, but they're hurting themselves. And when you're an athlete, I wish I would have been a professional athlete. I mean, I had skills and excelled, but not to the professional level.
Right.
I love the sports I played.
Yeah.
I respected the sports I played.
Yeah.
I feel like that whole live thing took something away from this.
Yeah.
Ronaldo was always considered the best, or between him and Messi, the best 2 players in soccer, even before Mbappe and all of these other players.
Yep.
Have you heard anything about Ronaldo lately? Have you even seen him play?
Since he went Saudi, I could tell you nothing about him. Seriously, like he's been wiped off the face of the earth. Whereas Messi comes over, becomes a global icon in Miami, and that's all I hear is great things. I've seen great things. It is what it is.
Well, and the MSL is always, or whatever you call it, it's always been the place where the great European players come, go all the way back to Beckham, and they retire, but their skills are so much better than the guys they're playing against, even though that they're older, and at the end of their careers,
Pele at age 50 was better. Think about it. Pele at age 50 was better than these 20-year-olds coming out of America.
I mean, pretty much. When he played for the Cosmos, right? When he played for the Cosmos, he truly was.
Yeah.
And you see that with Messi, and you see that with all of the different European players that came over here. How much more money do you need, Ronaldo? You could have come over here and retired, still being the greatest player in the world. Now we don't even know who you are.
Yep. So no, there's a way to quote unquote sell your soul when it comes to your sports and your talent, and that's happening a lot. It happens in baseball, happens in basketball too. We've seen it. Historically, people, guys will go play for the money. They'll never win a championship, and they'll be forgotten. Unfortunately, it is what it is.
That is so true.
If that's what's going to translate over to golf, then so be it. Unfortunately, you're going to wipe out the legacies of several golfers you think that would be on the fringe of doing some great things. I mean, Koepka at one point, huge ascendancy. Same thing. Yes. So no, it'll be interesting to see it play. But I honestly don't see any of these live golfers, other than maybe a DeChambeau here and there, being able to contend for some of these these tournaments at the end of the day.
I would say Koepka and Rahm should be there. Rahm is getting, his game is better than it was. His game looked like it was in shambles not long ago. And same with Koepka. I was the same thing. Koepka and both of those guys have an advantage. You talked about people who can hit the long ball. If you can get your long ball straighter than most, you are going to be hitting short irons into greens.
Yes.
You're going to have proximity to hole is going to be much closer. So now you should be able to take advantage of birdie chances instead of putting for 30 feet.
Yeah.
And I feel like they have an opportunity. Bruce Koepka, I'm sorry, has shown over history. He's like Tiger Woods used to be, in my opinion, where the harder the court, the better they perform.
Better he performs. Yeah, you're right. He's lived up to the moment a couple times. We've seen it, and and like I said, The guy could have built some brand recognition on his own sticking around over here. I don't understand why. I mean, I get the money and all that, but you know, he could have been even bigger and better. John Rahm, I consider him the next future dad bod. Seriously, like the dude is the epitome of like what we want to be as golfers in older life. Like, you know, we have the little hanging belly. We want to be able to swing like he does. You know?
You're not wrong about that. But you're right. I think you're right. And I think, you know, the only way you truly reach your potential is to be challenged. If you're not being challenged, these guys don't have to practice. They could just show up. I remember when they first started, I saw some scores like Phil Mickelson shot 77. And then I saw how much money he was making. And he was making $3-digit million. You know, he's making hundreds of millions of dollars, but he was shooting 76.
76. Yep.
See, because he wasn't getting penalized for that. You shoot a 76 in the PGA, you won't be there on Saturday and Sunday.
Right. No, at one point, obviously, there was, you know, I don't call it rivalry because I don't think it was, but some, you know, the media makes it out to be between Mickelson and Woods and all of that. Because I think Tiger just dominated. There's no rivalry, period. But now you've got, let's say 20 years from now, if I bring up the name Phil Mickelson, it's going to be a blip on the radar. It's not going to be something that's going to be remembered in enamored history, in my opinion. Like, yeah, he was lefty. Great. That's a brand recognition. But honestly, for the last 8 years, I haven't said the word Phil Mickelson until yesterday. I see him on the screen. I'm like, holy shit, he's still alive.
Well, you did see the flop shot he did, right?
I did.
Yeah.
It was
so, and again, he's always been one of those magicians when it came to short game and imagination and all of that stuff. And that's great. But you know what? Nobody's singing anymore, so nobody's going to remember that.
Golf is a game that needs characters. And by that, I mean you need a John Daly. You need guys like that are memorable and have the skill and, you know, use it to their advantage and make careers out of it. I mean, if John Daly had an ounce of focus in him with discipline, the guy could have won probably 10 majors.
You know, I agree with you. I think, but he was just having a good time. I just saw another video.
I love about it. The guy is so good that he is enjoying what he does as a craft, and he still does to this day. Yeah.
He still does. I just saw a video, I don't know, maybe a few weeks ago, where the girl said, "Please, like, can you hit a tee off my butt?" I mean, I could live that life.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I'm looking at the leaderboard right now. So Koepke's starting on fire over here. He's at 3 under. He's sitting second now. Onto the sixth hole. Victor Hovland's made his way back in the negative territory at -1 at hole 4. Sunjae Im had a great round yesterday. Another guy from Korea. There's a few Koreans that are out there that are contending.
Yeah, and they're both Kim.
Yep.
Yeah. Or no, one's a Kim and one's an M. So Sunjae Im, and then you got the other Kim.
Yeah, Inwoo Kim, and then I mean, they got some contenders there, and then John Rahm back at even at hole 4 today. Can't knock it. So I mean, it's gonna be an interesting long day. I mean, I don't think Scheffler and the boys take the hole until afternoon. That, by the way, one hell of a job from the PGA pairing that group together. I would have followed it all day on day one. It was him, Morikawa, and Hovland. How freaking awesome would have that been?
And Victor Hovland is actually 1 under right now. He's playing right now. It says through 4, so they actually have him playing. He's got a chance. And you know who else has a chance? What's his name? Ben Griffin. Ben Griffin's been on a hot streak with tournament wins. I think that he might be one of those. Confidence is about it. Everything you do, it's about the confidence being able to carry you through, knowing that you can do it. He's now got that confidence, and he's been able to put back weeks together.
I think what would be cool for golf is if you have a tin cup moment, a guy coming out of the woodwork, American, hardworking. Like there's a story about a dentist. I don't know if you heard this yesterday. So there's a dentist who qualified for the Open.
Nice. Hey.
Dude had his PGA card. I mean, everything. Like, and he got in. I don't know where he's tracking today. I've got to look it up. But you want to hear like a feel-good story when it comes to the U.S. Open every year, right? Like a tin cup story. Maybe Ben Griffin's the guy this year. He's in there. He's in that mix. Yeah.
He could be. He's in the mix. He's been playing well. Now, here's the thing that I would like to say. When you think of the movie Tin Cup, there are two sides of that.
There is.
And I saw some of that yesterday where they did not necessarily hitting the water multiple times, but it looked like they were just hacking at the ball. Hackety. And it's like, wow. One thing I have to say is, as a golfer, and a novice one, or amateur, whatever you want to call, my type of golf. I'm 20 handicap probably. It's fun to see the pros fail. It
Hell
is
yeah.
fun to see them fail. Yes, you practice every day. Yes, you're in the driving range. Yes, you play in tournaments. But to see you hit a ball like me once in a while, sort of, I feel vindicated in some way.
Yep. I especially take grace in, like, I think I was watching a guy at some point in the leaderboard. There was a guy named Thurston Lawrence. I'm like, that's a country club name. I want to see this guy miss, and he did.
He said Thurston Lawrence. That's a country club name.
Yeah, right.
I thought I saw his name up there for a minute.
He was up there for a minute.
He's actually he's from is that South Africa?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and he's in second right now at 3 under.
Yep.
So go ahead, Thurston, but you're right. That does sort of sound like country club boy.
I mean, Bruce Koepka's up there too in terms of country club names. Let's face facts.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
When's the last time you saw anybody named Brooks that wasn't affluent in some things?
Right.
You don't hear a kid from the hood named Brooks.
No, you don't. Nope. They may wear Brooks gym shoes from way back, but that's about all you get.
Straight up.
You know what's interesting, and I've seen a little bit of this. Adam Scott has had his career has been resurrected. You've seen his name on leaderboards recently. Sam Burns has got to be kicking himself for missing that 5-foot putt last week, or 3-4 foot putt for the title, and then he ended up giving it up a couple holes later. So you got some names on the board, but it's nice to see the Ben Griffins. It's nice to see Adam Scott sort of resurrect his career. Morikawa, he's one of those guys I feel like has so much talent, and he is like he what's the right word? He blew his wad, the phrasing, because he had all of those championships up front, and then when was the last time you heard him win anything? Yeah.
He was better as an underdog. It's kind of that kind of thing. You know what I mean? I'm looking at Dustin Johnson 6 over. I mean, Jordan Spieth's at 2. So Jordan's another guy, like, he was on the verge of greatness at one point, right? I mean, hell of a run. Yeah, and then,
down with the quickness. Justin Thomas, another one of those that was right there, and then boo, they fell. And that to me is a testament to those great players, this historic great players like the Tiger Woods, like the Jack Nicholson, Arnold Palmer, because they were able to sustain that greatness and not just like compete. They were winning constantly over decades.
There were guys in that generation that were to sustain greatness at a great level, even if they weren't the Jacks of the world. They were like the Lee Trevinos, the Fred Couples.
Lee Trevino. Yep, Freddie Couples.
There were so many cool guys in that era that like sustained greatness for so long.
Yep.
We're not seeing that in this day and age, or at least not as much of it, I would say.
No. And I'm not sure how to explain that. Is it the equipment is helping others sort of catch up, make the difference, but the equipment is equal to everyone, so you can all have the same equipment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it the dedication that those players back in the day put into the game versus now, where maybe you're not sitting out there hitting 1,000 balls a day? Maybe that's not what you're doing.
Yep. No, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, I take sports in two extremes nowadays. I feel like there's those guys that are super dedicated, 100% of their lives. Everything revolves around their sport and their practice. And sometimes they choke because of the mentals. And then there's the other guys that don't give a darn after a certain level of success. And then their careers fade. Now, that's where I like the balance of quote unquote 80s sports. If you look at basketball, golf, all these guys, they knew how to relax in their downtime. I'm sorry to say, you had Jordan smoking cigars, you had, Rodman doing Rodman things, you had everybody doing their own thing.
They did. Plus, most of those guys back then, I'm not sure what the drug testing laws were, but there were guys in the Bulls. Michael Jordan said it flat out, and you can name about 5 of them that were just basically playing cards, drinking, and doing blow and cocaine and all of that stuff.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug. Yes.
Heck, look at LT. LT did cocaine on the field, basically.
On the field, yeah. That wasn't a white bench you're looking at.
And you can't market that, right? Cocaine is a hell of a drug. You could be Lawrence Taylor.
Straight up. Now, that said, obviously, like I said, great golf to be watched today, tomorrow, and Sunday. It's a time-honored tradition. Father's Day ending for the U.S. Open. Watch it, tune in, appreciate it while you can. It's a pretty cool moment in sports and in life when you can do that with ones you love.
Agreed.
That said, There was a wonderful thing that also happened the other day with the NBA. A nice surprise, if you will, for game 3, at least from my standpoint. And I think all better standpoints. Everybody's thinking, oh, OKC's figuring it out. They'll run them over. Guess what? Indiana shut down the Thunder. Literally, I think, shut down because of the way they played defense. Yes, they have a less deep bench than the OKC Thunder, but guess what? They played harder than the OKC Thunder, in my opinion, in game 3.
Well, and I feel like Miles Turner was a presence
Yes.
in the middle with 4 or 5 block shots. And that's what I feel has been lacking. They need to have that presence. They need to be able to keep Oklahoma City from getting those easy buckets, whether it's Holmgren with lobs or, penetration by Shea. If they can do that, they have a real good chance. I mean, they're up 2-1. So no matter what happens this next game, I feel like they've told themselves that they can beat Oklahoma City, and they feel like they can beat Oklahoma City.
Well, the one thing I think that's been exposed a little bit now in the Thunder, and maybe you get proven wrong in the next couple of games, they don't have that killer on the team. I mean, yeah, SGA is good. Jalen Williams is good. They don't have that killer. Tyrese Halliburton's a killer.
Yeah, he's shown that through playoffs. I don't think you could have said that before this playoffs, but he is a killer. He's big moment type player. And I feel like Shea is also that. He didn't show it the last game. And they've had that. That was the one advantage Oklahoma City had, at least sounded like they had, at least on paper and what we've seen, is that they had Williams, they had Holmgren, they had Shea, and they had more options of people who can just start going off and scoring points. Williams did it one game. Shea's been doing it constantly, and Holmgren picked it up after having a bad game. But Indiana's showing that now too, and their bench, I forget what the stat was, but their bench scored a ton of points. They came in and made a difference. If you can spell your best players, your starters, and you can go and get a plus ratio when the starters are off the floor, man, you can't help but win then.
No, they've got the right recipe cooking. What's interesting is they've adopted what I thought OKC would walk into from a philosophy of walking into the series, meaning they would rotate, let's say, 5-6 guys on Halliburton to force the other Pacers out. Instead, Indiana used 8 guys on SGA. Count that, 8 guys on SGA in defense. They changed looks every 5 minutes. Like it was impressive to watch the defensive scheme that Rick Carlisle put together. Credit to him. I mean, he's championship coach. We know that, but that was impressive to watch with the litany of like I said, we've always said the depth on OKC is greater, but the out coaching on the Pacers side has been pretty impressive so far.
You hit it right on the head. I feel like this entire playoffs. Remember, Indiana who were they really supposed to beat?
Yeah.
And I feel like Carlisle has really put together the right kind of game plan for each one of the opponents they've had. And while they were in the series, they made adjustments to focus in on certain aspects or weaknesses of the opponent that they're playing. And he's done that to perfection. Nobody thought that Indiana would make it to the finals, let alone actually be at the point that they are in the finals, one, and having another game at home.
Yep. How scary is that? So like I said, it's going to be an interesting game on Saturday. All bets are off. I'm not going to – I would have said it's probably going to be the Thunder rebounding, but honestly, the Pacers are playing with some momentum now, in my opinion. You got the home court. You got the know-how of how to play them. Yeah, okay. Like I said, OKC just didn't look as aggressive in game 3. Because, I mean, there was one point I think Chet tried to put up a 3. He got blocked straight up. Like, I'm thinking, like, Chet Holmgren got blocked?
How did you get blocked at 7 feet? Come on, man. Come on, man.
There was an inbounds play. I think it was late in maybe the fourth quarter or third quarter. TJ McConnell was in it. TJ McConnell's like that dude. He's the work.
I love his grit. He's that gritty guy. I love that.
Yep. And he had just gotten a layup in, waits under the basket, takes the inbounds play, steals it, puts up another one. And that's all because OKC didn't have that killer instinct moving in the game, even though there was a back and forth game at that point. And that's what kind of blew it open for the Pacers at the end. It's like, and this is again very uncharacteristic like for the Thunder, where they didn't have closing momentum at the end of the game at all.
No, they did not. And quite frankly, whoever wins this game tonight will win, because I think if Indiana goes up 3-1, like I can't see Oklahoma City rattling off 3 because they're shook right now. They were reading their press too much, and everybody had them winning in 4 and 5 and all of that. They're going to dominate, and I think they're sheep right now. And if they lose tonight, is it tonight? No, it'll be. Is it tonight?
Saturday.
If they lose that game, I can't see them coming back from that winning 3 in a row.
I agree. Now, that said, in terms of comebacks, how about that NHL game last night?
Great transition into that. I give the Edmonton Oilers all of the credit. Being down 3-0 in the finals and a pivotal game. Because if they lose that game, they go down 3-1.
Yep.
And
in Florida.
Yeah. And they came back on the road and they showed some grit. And it's great to see the great one. You know, he's so proud of being able to say that about Edmonton now. Pretty amazing. The goal that they got to win it by DeSato, I forgot how to pronounce his name. It was sort of flukish. It hit the skate of the defender and went between. I love the way the goalie looked. He looked like he was breakdancing. It was so funny. And then he just try to close his legs. Like, oops, shouldn't have dropped the soap. He got me in between the legs. But amazing game. And you know what? I have to say, hockey this playoff season has been pretty amazing, on the same level as what we've seen with the NBA, from amazing games, amazing comebacks, amazing stories. My hat's off to both of the leagues for being able to entertain the masses with real riveting, competitive games that really make you want to go watch the sport again. I have to say, usually around this time, I'm sort of falling off like, oh God, it's summer. Sport's going to suck, but they're going out with a bang.
No, it's been huge. And we've said it before, we've said it again. Playoff hockey is pretty cool to watch, regardless of whether you're a fan of one team or the other. It is cool to watch. I mean, like I said, I was lucky enough to live in Chicago during the Blackhawk drain. It was pretty impressive to watch. Don't get me wrong. And even as even being in Chicago this time of year, every single bar is packed watching hockey. It's pretty cool to watch. It doesn't matter.
Actually, that's true. Hockey has a big following here. We're a hockey town. We may be a Bears town. They say that a lot. But I can tell you that we are a hockey town, and all of the suburban people who don't live in the city proper, they follow hockey, and they come into the city to go to the bars to watch the hockey games.
There's a season in Chicago where you finally move outside for the bar scene, and honestly, the screens are up, and you're watching playoff hockey in June, and it's pretty cool to watch.
It is. Totally agree. And to have both of the leagues have these types of, and now you're guaranteed pretty much 6 games in one series, and if Oklahoma wins the next game, it'll be 6 games in another series. So you're able to extend that out and be able to promote your product a little bit more before we get into the baseball swoon. I went to the Cubs game yesterday, and it was fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's still baseball.
We're still not even a 2/3. No, sorry, we're not even 1/3, almost 1/2 of the way through the season. And like, to me, baseball doesn't become entertaining until August, and even in August, it's like, okay, we're just starting, and then maybe September, when you finally see the playoff run, that's when you start.
And that's what it means something. When you have 162 games and you're in game 60, game 60 really doesn't mean a whole lot, does it? Unless you are already in places like the Colorado Rockies and the White Sox are, where they're so far out of it, they could go on like a 30-game win streak and still be out of it.
You could throw Baltimore into it this year, because obviously their season's been a bust as well with the amount of talent they had. And that's surprising. They are this close, probably to getting to free ticket season, which I don't mind, because I get to take my kids out there for nothing. But
gotta like that.
It's sad to see here, because they had new ownership come in last year with David Rubenstein, and it was supposed to try to transform the culture a little bit.
They got talent.
Oh, they're the greatest farm team on the planet. I mean, they've nothing but produced some of the best talent out of the league when it comes to the farm system. But the minute it comes time to pay it, you don't do it. So, it is what it is. So for that fleeting moment where you have 5-6 guys that are at the top of their game and you have them on rookie contracts, it's great baseball out here. That's how it was about 2 years ago out here when they made a couple playoff runs. And even they were the number 1 seed last year in the AL, and they choked, obviously. So that was another piece to it. Yeah, they did. But this year, forget it. They're done. They're toast. I'm waiting for free ticket season with every pizza I order or whatever it is that they do around here.
Free tacos, free pizza, free something.
Well, I'll make this a different conversation for the end of the day. There are organizations around, not just MLB, but even football and other things. They are making it less attractive for fans to go to games in person. Whether it's the product on the field, the cost, things of that nature. The big thing around here is cost. It costs, on average, for two people to go to a Ravens game somewhere north of about $400 now. And that's for the worst seats on the planet.
I was going to say that's the super nosebleeds.
Yeah. It's the nosebleed. So I'm not even talking like good seats, nothing. So for football to be priced out that much, it's making it unattractive all across the country. Baseball, unless you've got a good product and it's September, I don't know who's going to the games, you know.
I know that's agreeable, and I have seen it too. I feel like it's no longer about trying to win and put up the best product on the field. It's always bottom line oriented. And being in Chicago, we've seen that the owners here, that's all they think about. That we got lucky to get Jordan to become winners. We got lucky, and this is going to sound bad, and I don't mean it to, but we got lucky that Bill Wirtz passed away and his son Rocky took the mantle and actually wanted to win, because Bill Wirtz wasn't concerned with winning. He didn't even want to show Blackhawk games on TV for the longest. So it wasn't about that. And it's just a shame that, you know, and I guess this is a perfect example of this to some degree. The basketball finals, you got a small market team versus a small market team.
Yep.
That didn't used to be the case.
Nope.
But I feel like these big market teams are like, you know what? Besides the Dodgers, you know, I see the Yankees are trying to win, but I feel like they spend the money, but they don't spend it wisely. And I don't feel like they are committed to really winning. They're just committed to not being horrible.
Here's a controversial and funny take that I read about a week ago. So it seems that Jerry Reinsdorf's willing to sell part of the stake of the White Sox, if not the majority share of the White Sox here soon. There's a guy, I think Matt Ishbia is the owner, I think, of the Phoenix Suns in NBA basketball. His brother wants to buy the White Sox. They're all billionaire real estate moguls out of the southeast of the United States, southwest. The interesting take that came is if Ishbia buys them, and if the MLB is willing to, he would like to move them to a better market, aka Nashville, which is a hotbed right now for everything sport, to say the least.
Well, and they don't have any professional teams except hockey.
Exactly. It would eat it up alive, and there's a lot of money being thrown into that city right now just from all sorts of standpoints. How weird would it be not to have the White Sox in Chicago if that happened?
To me, I think it's like you see in California and you see in New York. Chicago can support two baseball teams. The fact that the owner is literally ruining that franchise, and I was talking about him the other day. People may not remember this because I'm a fan of Chicago, but I'm a Cubs fan. I live on the north side. I'm a Cubs fan. But I liked the Sox back in the day. And Jerry Reinsdorf, back, I want to say 94, was the owner who promoted the strike because he was saying the players were making too much money. And the White Sox had Robin Ventura, Frank Thomas. They had pitching. They were killing the league, and they looked like a sure bet to at least make the World Series, if not win it. He shut that season down. And what came out of that, once everything got resolved, was that the first signing was Jerry Reinsdorf signs Albert Bell to the richest contract in baseball. Albert Bell was the worst person to have in a locker room ever.
Yeah.
And he ruined them.
He ruined it. Yep. Think about it. You had Tim Raines, Frank Thomas. You had a whole litany of players in that 94 squad.
Yeah, and you had pitching too. So you had everything you needed. You went out of your way to shut down the season. And then you came back and you paid a guy who didn't deserve that money, even though he was the home run king and all of that stuff. But you need a team. Yeah,
he was a red flag walking. Literally, he was a red flag walking,
and look what happened to the team. They fell apart, and nothing happened after that. And I'm sorry, that's just how Reinsdorf operates. He just does the wrong thing all of the time. He thinks that he's smarter than everybody else. We saw that with the Bulls, because the organizations win championships, not players. Whoever says that? Put those people in that organization in a uniform and put them on the field, and let's see how they perform. Oh, okay. So it just is sad to see that it's not about winning. If I'm an owner, you're supposed to be at a point when you have enough money, you have wealth, and not just rich, to where you can invest in winning, even if it's not going to be the most profitable for you. You should have divested your funds. You should have or have a wide enough portfolio to be able to handle maybe having a franchise that doesn't make $10 billion a year.
Think about. I mean, Magic Johnson was on. I think on ESPN yesterday, being interviewed as an owner and everything else, and obviously a model citizen to say the least. You know, in what he's done. Has he overlived using some sort of magic pills? Probably. But anyway.
Hey, I'm not mad at him.
Yeah, I ain't mad at him. But think about it. Every franchise that he's touched has won a championship. Dodgers championship. And now he owns the Commanders, aka Reds. I'm still going to call them the Redskins. He's gonna make magic there too. Like this dude just knows how to make success around the league. Now they were joking with him. It's like, hey, if an NBA franchise goes on sale, would you buy it? And he says, yeah, I'd like to do an NBA ownership one day. So naturally, you would think, okay, maybe the Lakers or something if the Buss family relinquishes it, which is probably not going to be the case.
I don't know. Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith, being the New York Knick that he is, asked the question, like, if James Dolan put the Knicks for sale, would you buy them? And Magic Johnson said, yes, I would buy them. And Stephen A. is like, how much money do I need to give you?
I would like to see that. Magic, please don't buy the Knicks because the Knicks are the Knicks. I'm sorry.
No, exactly.
You know what's funny is that I feel like Magic Johnson should run for president because one,
the man's a model citizen.
Trump was an outsider, and that gave him leverage to become president the first time around. Yep. He actually has run successful businesses.
Yes, plural.
He didn't run into the ground, and he used his own money. He didn't have his father's money because Magic Johnson's family weren't rich.
Nope.
So that's the kind of guy, a model guy for an owner, for the president of the United States. Anything, I feel like Magic is just that guy. He has the right kind of attitude and knowledge and ability and passion, and he's Magic. Everybody loves Magic.
I don't want to go political on it, but I would say if we are going to try to create the next minority hope in the country, you would want to center it around two people, in my opinion. One would be Magic Johnson. The other one would be Robert Johnson, who I believe is one of the most successful business black men in the country. And I think he donates somewhere north of $1 billion in the HBCUs, I believe, every year, if I'm not mistaken.
And is that Robert Johnson of Johnson &
Johnson? No, not Robert Johnson. I'll try to remember in a second. But
okay.
The man's a philanthropist is what I'm trying to get at. And he's been successful at all of his businesses and everything else. Would you want to throw Tyler Perry in the mix? Yeah, maybe. He's been pretty successful too. But there's a lot of Southern black businessmen that we don't talk about is what my point is. And a lot of these guys have been extremely successful in their businesses, don't get the credit for it that I think they should on a national stage or international stage.
You know how that goes.
Yeah, but if you want to create a success story and pay Democrats, if you want to try to get behind a candidate that can get the whole country kind of together and stuff like that and has shown success, you got guys like Magic at the end of the day that can lead it up. And more importantly, more than Magic Johnson being the successful business person that he is, he's been able to bring together ownership groups. Think about that for a second. Everything that he does is done as a group, as owners,
right?
With a lot of successful people. So he knows the resources.
Right. Well, and I think one of the things, I mean, let's not be naive about this. Trump, in my opinion, was elected not just because he was an outsider, wasn't in politics at the time, which was the movement at that time, but of his celebrity. People think of him as the apprentice, and they look at that and the show is a success, and they're like, ooh, we like that guy. Magic Johnson has just as much celebrity as Donald Trump. And if they can do that with Donald Trump, with a guy who doesn't know what the hell he's doing and is petulant with regards to how he reacts to things, his emotion and his jealousy and all of these things, talk about being able to promote a Magic Johnson. Why can't we slide him in there and have something like that happen?
All I can say is tomorrow is going to be very entertaining on the news. I mean, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, good or bad right now, but you have a military parade taking place in Washington, D.C. for a non-military person in this country, and you're spending well over, I think it's $80 million on this thing, if not more, if I'm not quoted correctly.
Why?
And I thought the whole purpose of this supposed regime that we voted into office in whatever capacity it is as a country was to try to figure out where the fat is in the government to trim it. That was the whole purpose of DOGE, right?
And now you're spending this money on pomp and circumstance.
Thank you. My point exactly. I'm like, what the hell have we come to, and what have we put into office as a collective, as a country?
But my problem, well, the fact that he was elected and he's doing this,
Yeah.
but why isn't anybody checking him on this?
Exactly.
All you people who voted for him, is this what you wanted?
Right.
You should be checking him on this. You should be going in and should be voicing your opinions so people know. And maybe that'll start creating a movement where people are like this. We are fed up with this.
Yep.
But I don't see that.
Nope. No, I think today there was a thing that came out on today's news early on, because I don't know if you heard overnight, but Israel attacked Iran in different.
I didn't hear that yet, but I haven't watched the news.
Huge, yeah, it was huge news. It was late last night, maybe like 11 o'clock. But Israel launched missiles at Iran, did some destruction there. The simple reaction from our president and our leadership was, well, we told them they had 60 days to come up with a truce, and this is the consequence. This was the reaction to Iran. Instead of playing diplomat in the sense of, and again, I don't care what side of the fence people are on that are listening to this, or us, or anything otherwise. You could be on one side, Israeli, Palestinian, Iranian, Russian, whatever you want. At the end of the day, innocent people are getting killed. That's all I care about.
That's the real deal right there.
And we care less about all the politics.
That. War, no one wins in war.
Exactly.
No one.
Exactly.
But a lot of people
solving anything. Yeah, nothing is being solved by the bombing and all. And whether you support one side or the other, nothing is being solved, and it hasn't for now. What I feel like has been my entire children's life. So my son gets up and watches the news with me and says, "So when does war stop?" He's known nothing but war for 10 years on a global scale.
I mean, between Russia and what you're seeing with Israel, yeah. I mean, that's sad.
The last time in the world, truly, anybody can say that we did not have some part of the world fighting another? Seriously, it's been a while. It's been a minute.
Because we may not see it on the news, but there's been a lot of fighting behind the scenes in various countries for various reasons.
Yeah.
I just, again, I feel like
you got India, Pakistan escalating. You've got China in the mix. You've got all sorts of things going on. And I hate to say it, but there's probably wars going on in some parts of Africa that we didn't even hear about.
Oh, for sure. That was the first thing I was going to say. There are wars in Africa between, rival factions of, I won't call them gangs, but you have these, going on all the time. But we don't hear about it in the news. Yeah. But this is why I feel like we are a world power. We are the world power. And yet we're not taking the opportunity like this to be the negotiator, because that's what we historically have been. But we don't have that mentality anymore. And I get some of that. I get some of it. Some of the other countries even feel like they sort of resentful of America becoming, being that, voice of the world.
No one else is willing to step up either, though.
And that's the truth of the matter.
Where are the Indias, the Chinas? You have the supposed power, but you're not willing to step up and take the responsibility on a global stage. So,
and that's the truth of the matter. Yeah, but it does cost us. It cost us some political capital, and it costs us a lot of money. I feel like we should try to address a lot of things that are wrong with America, while still trying to maintain that idea of keeping peace around the world.
Right. Well,
I don't feel like we're doing that.
I hate to say it, a lot of that starts at home, and we can't even do that in a lot of places.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're not doing that. And what we've seen thus far is definitely not the solution. It's actually, I feel like it's taking us further back, not bringing us forward. But we shall see. We shall see what happens. I mean, I'm hopeful that people will start to wake up and use their voice. Unfortunately, for those who were protesting some of the migration laws and what have you, immigration laws, and to see that they're calling out the National Guard and using that as a weapon against the people, it's like now. To the defense of that reaction, when you want to protest. Peaceful. Riots are not protesting.
Exactly.
And they become the focal point of the people who don't want to see these protests, because they can use that and say, well, these aren't really protests, so we can take whatever actions necessary. And the message is now lost in what your protest was for. You protest.
Yeah, when we act as a country to protest things that we are not for, the unfortunate part is the 1% of that faction that's within that ruins it for the greater cause, generally speaking. I hate to call it out, but Black Lives Matter, that's exactly what happened. It was a greater cause we had, but then everything you see on the news is about riots, buildings getting, looted, all that crap. That
Okay,
shouldn't be on it. Yeah.
I feel like some of that though, I don't know
Yeah.
about this one. I haven't seen all of the videos, but for the Black Lives matters, if you saw, there was sabotage going on because some of those things that happened weren't because of the people who were in the protest. It was someone who didn't look like the people in the protest, threw a brick through the window and went, yeah, and then people went nuts. So, and that was deliberate. So someone planted that to make sure that the riots happened so that they could diffuse the whole idea of the protest.
And that's also the greater problem we pointed out here is we've got a few people in the country that have the money, means, and power to control a lot of different things, bad or good. And honestly, that's where the bad actors come into play, and they ruin the entire public perception of what truly is going on. So that's where we always have said here on this forum, do your math, do your education, do your reading, do your research on anything that you're trying to stand for and believe in, because there's a lot of bad stuff that's not true that's out there, unfortunately.
Yep. And believe me, the people who say fake news and who brought that to the forefront are the ones who have the most fake news.
Most amount, exactly. Yep, exactly.
So, and it just, as a human being and as a person, you owe it to yourself to understand more of the world around you and be able to comment on it and have some kind of influence, and maybe just a small one in your section of your world. But if you're doing good spreads. If you're pointing out bad, you're identifying things that are hindering our ability to evolve and to grow. So don't just sit on your hands on the couch.
Put this up. Nope, it's not gonna be too bright. Well, either way, I'll just read it out. Former NFL wide receiver Antonio Brown wanted on attempted murder charge.
We're gonna bring that up. It's been all over the place. I see it popping up on the ticker tapes on Sports Center and all of that. Honestly, here is a guy who had all the talent in the world, was given the opportunity, and just acted a fool. And sometimes I'm afraid of this. And this is, you see this a lot, and you've seen this over history. You have these people who come from poor areas, for lack of a better term. They have amazing ability. They're manipulated to take that ability, put you in the right situation so we can make as much money as we can off of you, and you'll make some too. But they don't have the aptitude to handle the money. Some people, I'm sure there are people who rip people off, accountants and so forth, the Don Kings of the world who promise you the mountain and gives you a molehill. But this to me happens so often, and it's so sad to see that someone who had all of this ability, and he may have some mental issues, wasn't able to take this great opportunity that he was given. And he was given multiple times forgiveness, going from Pittsburgh and all the weird things he did. And then he ended up on Tampa Bay. Tom Brady was still trying to help him, but he wasn't able to utilize that help in the right way. And here we see the ending of everything for him. If he's wanted on attempted murder, I'm not sure if he's guilty or not. But with all of the other things we know were true about this guy.
I hate to say if a character plays bias, it is what it is what it is, right? Yeah.
Well, we've seen so many of these guys. You would think everybody wants to be a millionaire, right? These guys get the opportunity to be a millionaire playing a sport, and then they go from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. And trust me, when you get to the bottom of the mountain, nobody cares about you. You become a laughing stock. You become a thing that people will joke about. You probably hear, things about this on the Jimmy Kimmel shows or whatever. So it's just sad to see that, because a human being is a human being, and I don't want to see anybody fail. But at the same time, you dug your own grave, Antonio. You had so many chances, and I hope that you find a way to get through this. But if you are guilty of this, you deserve to do the time.
No, it's unfortunate to hear these stories constantly. I feel like in NFL, NBA, all the other sports that we revere, that we highlight here. And again, there's got to be a way to get to these guys early in their careers and help them. And maybe they just don't want the help, and maybe that is the problem with behaviorally. We've mentioned it here. It'd be a great business model for somebody to start an agency, literally to counsel young talent in whatever way you can. And I get that there's that whole agency world that exists out there with agents and all the others, hoopla. But that's where you have the bad actors like the Don Kings and everybody else in the world that
they don't care about the player. They just care about making them as much money as they can off of
it. An easy way that can be solved. If the leagues themselves paid for outside consulting agencies, so take away the money of the player, erase that from the table in any equation. If the league had a fund set up that paid for outside agencies to consult and counsel young talent as it came into their respective leagues, I feel like we could mitigate a lot of this. It would be a goodwill effort on the part of the league. I mean, the leagues take a lot of flack right now for not even providing benefits to their retirees and a lot of different things.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah.
Which stuns me given the amount of money flowing through all of this, all this sports agenda that we have today. I mean, like I said, we've brought it up here before. NIL is a whole different mess, and that's just tip of the iceberg, I hate to say. And it's going to be changing here soon. When we will talk about that another day. But the leagues themselves make so much money that they should be able to support the well-being and build-up and development of the talent they have. And I don't see where it can't be quote-unquote non-corrupted by them facilitating and paying for it.
I would agree with that, and it's protecting your product, right?
Yeah,
your brand.
Yes.
I do think that they do some of these because I have seen that they have classes for these freshmen or these draft picks coming in. They do have some of that. I think some of it is just people are being ignorant, but I think you're starting a little late. I feel like it should be like this in all of colleges and everything else. Why aren't we teaching kids life? How do you live life? It's great to be theoretical and it's great to understand what Attila the Hun did in history and all of that, but that's not impacting your life. What about how you do taxes? What does it mean when you're talking about net income, and how do you get to a point where you establish net income? That should be the thing we teach these kids.
They don't teach home ec anymore in school.
No, they don't.
Think about that. I mean, people just kind of forgot about that from, I don't know, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that we grew up in. Home ec was like the fundamentals of shit. Like, okay, you learned how to cook a little bit. You learned how to sew. You learned little things about life, about budgeting, about taxes, about, simple stuff that you do on a daily basis. Hence why we call it home economics. They don't teach any of that anymore because they feel like it's somehow innate already, and everybody
sure is not either. Yeah, it's not.
Kids don't know shit. I've been on field trips where kids have gotten money from their parents to take on field trips. They don't know how much change to get when they spend this money.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I think a lot of the fundamentals we learned and have inherent in us as adults was learned as a kid. You know what I did? How I learned to cook? I watched my mom.
Yes, same.
How many kids take the time now to watch their mother, or are they in the phone going? Exactly. So you don't learn. I feel like you don't learn a lot of things because you're not there and present to be informed, to be educated. I didn't have to say anything to my mom. I didn't ask my mom how much of this or how much of that. I just watched her. And that helped me understand the basics to sauteing versus, baking versus this versus that. But we don't have that time anymore. Kids aren't spending that time like that anymore. They're so engaged in their phone that if, you're not, oh, you know what? I just got a note. Remember what I said about the parking situation? I got to go in 15 minutes. Go for it. I got to get my car reparked. So I'm probably going to end this a little early. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
We'll save that topic for another day, too.
I think we can talk a little bit about the politics. We can talk about, I think the system fails these kids because they don't start early enough. They should be learning this. For instance, they have all these AAUs and all of these special camps for these kids. They should immediately have something as a supplement to just teaching them about the sport they play, to teaching them about life. And you might be coming into money. Not all of you, but some of you are becoming superstars or will become superstars. How do you handle that emotionally, financially? How do you handle this? But if you don't know, you blow your money when you make it. Because, going from poor to rich can be very taxing on a person. And then you're giving money away to relatives because everybody wants to leech off of you. You have no investments. You don't invest your money. So I feel like if they started when these kids are 10, 11, 12, 15, you're more likely to get them to listen than if they've gone through their lives and now they're 20 something and they're entering the league knowing that they're going to be billionaires, now they're not listening as much.
Kids are more impressionable between those ages that you just said, 10 to 15, than 18, where they've already made up some opinions about their lives. So why not, like you said, start early is the easiest solution. I don't disagree. Absolutely. Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I just want to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day to you, my partner.
Likewise.
May you receive the same love that everybody gives to the mothers on Mother's Day.
Yes, sir. 100% agree. We have talked about it before, and we'll talk about it again. It won't be until today at 5 p.m. you'll start seeing stuff at stores for sale for Father's Day.
I just saw the first thing yesterday, and I showed it to my brother. I was like, this is the first time I've heard anything about Father's Day. It's like 3 days before Father's Day, and now they want to advertise it?
Right, exactly.
They're probably already advertising for Mother's Day next year now.
Heck yeah. Valentine's Day and Mother's Day has already been advertised. Believe me. Yeah. There's already flower specials.
and Father's Day. It's like, that addendum at the end that you don't really want to say too loudly,
There you go.
Father's Day.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I wish you well. I wish everybody well.
Yep.
May you guys find joy in your life every day.
Absolutely. Off with it, and we'll be back next week, guys. Thanks.
You got it. Peace out.